Welcome everybody, it's Peps here, and tonight I have your 2021 Sydney Swans season preview. And tonight have I scoured the beautiful wet sands of New South Wales to get Dave from the True Bloods podcast to talk to me about the beautiful Swans. Will they be flying into September action, or will they be just sitting at the bottom of the ladder similar to 2020? We'll find out this and more. But first and foremost, Dave from True Bloods, welcome to Lace Out.
G'day, Paps. Thanks for having us, mate. Looking forward to, digging into the Swannies list. I must say, mate, I am from Melbourne, so that's probably why you found a Swannies supporter. There we go, mate.
Now, are we talking former South Melbourne into the Swans, or it's just been Swans for you?
Nah, exactly right, mate. So the grandparents were old South Melbourne supporters, so they followed them up to Sydney in 81, I think it was. So they got me on board and been a Swanee ever since, mate. So haven't looked back. Is
it one of those things that you've just embraced them, or they bought you your first football jumper? This is yours, mate, Dave. Embrace this club, or you really haven't got much choice in barracking for anybody else.
Yeah, well, it's funny in my close family, I've got my parents are different supporters. Dad goes for the Saints, and my mum and my sister are Geelong.
Sack them both. Sack them all.
Exactly. And my grandparents were Sydney along with my uncle, so they sort of got me on board. And look, I'm pretty happy with that choice. Geelong's won a few flags there, mate. But, Swans probably been up there with the top two teams in the last 20 years. So I'm not complaining, mate, whatsoever.
You, for a club that was on its knees in the 80s, to move up to Sydney and just for what you've done up there, when Sydney's flying, there is no better place to be than the SCG. That joint is packed out. It's a party atmosphere. The whole town loves a winner. But unfortunately in 2020, we couldn't really say that because it was spent down the bottom of the ladder for predominantly most of the year. If we look at it, finished 16th, 5-12 record, finishing up with a percentage of 82.64. It wasn't the normal Sydney that we've come to expect. Like, there was a season a number of years ago where you started off 0-6 and you made the finals by winning 14 of the last 16.
2016, mate, will never be forgotten.
Will never be forgotten, because they did some statistics today and said if you're 0-2, the chances of making the finals after that is like 8%. And eight of the clubs out of 0 at the moment play each other this week. So there's going to be 4 clubs sitting on 0-2, and a couple of those, like Carlton, Collingwood, are going to be going up against each other. One of them is going to be in a bad spot for the rest of 2021. But what happened in 2020 for like I said, for the club to have such a drop in form, in results, just everything across the board? We know Buddy was injured, and we'll get on to him shortly. What was it from your eyes that caused such a dramatic downfall just for last year?
Yeah, look, obviously 2020 being, a pretty tough year for everyone with COVID. And I think if you weren't, you've got the core group sort of already set up, like your Richmonds and your Geelongs fighting it up at the top. If you were, playing outside, your home city, like obviously didn't play a game in Sydney last year. And normally the SCG has been quite a fortress, but that's sort of something that's dropped off in the last couple of years as well. I think we've finished 3 years out in the bottom 4 now. And as we sort of touched on in our podcast, it's time now for, your bottom 5 players every year. That's what sort of makes you competitive, I feel. Every team's going to get injuries. Everyone's going to come up against adversity, and it's those bottom 5 players that get you through. And I think, we've got, that core group of players who have 30 to 50 games now. Your Rowbottom's got 30 games. Your Blakey has got 30 games. Your Ollie Florence got 50 games now. So
71, who's counting?
Yeah. They're the players who I think are going to help us sort of get through, what has been a tough 3 years for the club. There's no doubt about that. But I think last year, it's just a bit of a combination of being a young side. And I think on the weekend we were the second youngest side out there, and have a good win against like we did on Brisbane, at Brisbane. I'm sure we'll touch on that later, but I think it's just all starting to come together now.
Yeah. Look, you mentioned a lot of your kids, and I do this for every club, and I had a little bit of a look at the age profile. I do it a bit different from everybody else. I go from who's above 28 and who's played less than 10 games, because I think that's a bit of a mix. I actually thought your list would have been a little bit older. You had 9 over 28. Okay. Yeah. So, and we're talking, if you look at some of these names, Franklin, Kennedy, Parker, Rampy, Lloyd, Reed, they're top of the food chain. Actually, it's top. Yeah, they're your oldest. Who haven't a Tom Hickey's in there, but he's just come to the club as well too.
Just come to the club.
Sam Naismith, Sam Gray. You've got on a rookie, and like I said, Callum Sinclair. So you've got some high quality names at that end of the scale. But then if you have a look at from the games perspective, you've got 14 that have played 10 games and under, and some of those names: Justin McInerney, Dylan Stevens, Matthew Ling, Chad Warner. And if we talk about a couple that rocked up on the weekend, don't know if you've heard about them, but Errol Goulden and Logan McDonald. Jeez, I tell you what, like the future is bright up there in Sydney. And
it is, mate. And we've been blowing the trumpet for a long time now, and the last 2 years has been frustrating to watch. And if you really watch the Swans close, we'll rock up for a quarter, every 2 or 3 weeks, and we play some of the best football that anyone's seen in the last 2 or 3 years. And I think, as we saw on the weekend, we sort of put it together for 4 quarters. We talk about a 4-quarter performance all the time for Sydney, and I can only say we've done it a handful of times in the past 5 years. It's been tough sort of since that, 2018 season. But look, it's encouraging signs early, and we do have those young players. And you have a look on the weekend, Will Hayward doesn't get a game in the Sydney Swans team. He's been one of our stars and shining lights. Probably, a bit of a down season last season.
I'll just interrupt that, but when you say a down season, he's not the only one. Look, almost last year, if you had a good season last year, that was the anomaly. There was so many players who had down seasons across the board, because there's a number of factors involved too. So if Will Hayward can't get a game at the moment for the Swans, it's actually a good thing. It's a good thing for him, because it means that he's actually got a challenge for a position, but it also means that the club's in a stronger position as well too. So it's just one of those. I could go through all 18 clubs, and everyone that we've spoken to could say they had a bad year, they had a bad year, they had a bad year. It's how they rebound from it, but as a club, has they rebounded? And I think some clubs probably got stronger in the hubs collectively as well too. And maybe the Swans have reaped that as well.
Yeah, I think obviously that bond and stuff that they would got in the hub would have been good. And we got thrown around a little bit too. We had to go to Perth, up to the Gold Coast and up to the Northern Territory. It wasn't like we were in the Gold Coast for, 8-10 weeks like some clubs were. So we did get thrown around a little bit. So I think that reflects with our year last year. But look, I haven't got the stats in front of me, but I think we were in a lot of games last year, and just sort of, you win a few more of those, and, you're not talking about a bottom 4 side. But I think on paper, you can definitely look at our young kids. They're some of the best young crop going around. There's no doubt about that. And it's sort of starting hopefully to come to fruition this year, because I don't think many teams have done that to the Lions in the past 2 years, what we saw on Saturday night.
No, you absolutely destroyed them. And you were right. Last year, you had 7 games that were decided by a margin of less than 10 points.
Yeah, look, we're in a lot of games. And it's frustrating when you don't get those over the line. But, that's what I think goes under the radar sometimes with all clubs, is that group of 5 or 6 games that could go either way. What are we in? 4 or 5 games last year, maybe 6.
So you won 5 and 12. Okay, and the short ones were a win against Adelaide by 3, lost to the Bombers at the SCG by 6.
Yep.
The Tigers lost by 8. Hawks, you won by 7. Magpies lost by 9. Blues lost by 5. Cats lost by 6. Remember when Richmond at one stage were just losing games by the bee's dick of margins, and they were that close. They just needed that extra kick in that extra season. And I think that extra season meant them winning flags.
Yeah.
If you can be at that particular point last year in foreign environments, etc., with what you've brought in and those, like you said, those players just get another year of experience, another preseason under them, and probably a longer preseason because you didn't play finals. You would have that shortened preseason like you would every year. Just that extra couple of weeks just adds that little bit extra, and hopefully, fingers crossed, you're a bit of a grind out type of team, and so those longer quarters are going to be more beneficial for you as well too.
Yeah, look, I think you can even say that we may not be that grinding in and under contested football side that, has been Sydney for the past 20 years. I think there was a clear change in game plan last year where we're taking on the corridor, the short 45 kicks and working our way with handball through the ground off half back we've just gone with elite ball users. And I think the rule change that's come in with the man on the mark not being able to move and having been able to have an elite kick off half back and moving forward, Jake Lloyd's been huge for us the last couple of years, reigning best and fairest winner. He's crucial to our offensive play off half back. Players like that, Jordan Dawson may have one of the best left pegs we've ever seen as well. And then you've got a first gamer in Braden Campbell who's been touted better than Matty Rowell in the preseason. I heard Pep on SEN.
Well, the only thing he needs to do is actually play a full game, and he will be better than Matty Rowell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you feel for him. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, these young kids that we brought in and to have an impact like they all did, it's exciting stuff. But I don't think we're going to be that grinding team that you've seen in the sort of past 20 years. I think there's a bit more about us in the more attacking prospects that we've got going forward into 2021.
And that's going to be different for John Longmire, because normally he has been that, to a degree, park the bus, grind it out, taken over a little bit from the Paul Roos methodology. And now he's got a list which is quite young, quite quick, quite skillful. It's like, well, I'm not change the way, but now I've got maybe a list that I've really wanted to do and really wanted to play this way, but I haven't had the cattle to do it. Now he has. And especially like you just mentioned, a couple of the guys that he brought in over the preseason part of the draft, like Logan McDonald at 4, like that's going to be potentially one of those. Why did they go? Well, I can understand why the doggies went Jamail, Ugal. Yeah, that one. You can, but then there's going to be other clubs going, why did we go this guy over that guy? If he continues what he did, it's the first game, might have got it under a few radars. Then you got another guy, Braden Campbell, he picked up at 5, and then only the Sydney Swans would draft a guy named Errol. Errol Goulden comes in at 32.
He's the second ever Errol to play AFL.
Well, I'll tell you what, he could be the best too, because what he did on the weekend in his first game as well. And then you got Malaki Carruthers, who you've picked up as a rookie. Like you get 4 picks, you've already nailed 2 of them. Like there's drafts where clubs struggle to nail 1, and they might have 4 or 5 picks. You've nailed 2, and they've shown it against a quality team in Brisbane. So from what you saw from that game, was it just the complete package that you guys brought? Did you catch Brisbane on the hop? Were they not even thinking that this was Sydney finishing 16th last year? They're not going to be much chop. We've brought Joe Danaher in.
Walk in the park?
Yeah, walk in the park. Did they underestimate? Has everybody underestimated you, do you think, at this moment in time?
I think so. Just to touch on those players, Logan McDonald slipping through to 4, that was surprising for everyone. And this is the thing. Key forwards don't grow on trees. We know that, and they take time to develop. But this guy's been playing in the waffle senior footy for a couple of years, so he's up against those hardened bodies. He's ready to go. And the 2 games he's played, Peps, the preseason game against GWS, mate, he came on at halftime and completely changed the dynamic of our forward line. We had a key target. And he's ready to go, kick the goal in the first quarter. He's got a big boot on him. He can kick it from outside 50, and we've seen what his hands are like. There's greasy conditions up there at the Gabba, the Gabatoir, as we like to say on True Bloods.
I call it the Jab of the Hut. The Jab of the Hut, yeah, because it can be an absolute sweatbox up there.
Yeah, and a bit of a fortress up there too. But it's just amazing to see normally, you know, those key forwards take a couple of years to come good, but I think this guy's going to be good straight away and be making an impact. And Sydney's been crying out for that for years, and especially last 2 years, hardly have Buddy out on the field. And for a start, he has never been the big contested marking player.
No, he never was. Even down at Hawthorn, no, he's that lead out, swing onto the left foot, get the hands, one of the best field kicks, elite runner. And to think he's only 56 goals or something away from 1,000. Like, I think everybody just wants him to get to that because it'll never happen again. So we've got to get this guy across. You've got 2 seasons. He only has to kick 30-ish every season from now on. Fingers crossed he can do it too. But he's an absolute beast. Yeah.
Yeah, he's gonna have Buddy as a mentor. I don't think there's a better one in the game. So I think that's just gonna help his game come on, 110%. You know, the Errol Goulden, we probably haven't put a lot of time into him talking on True Bloods. But look, after the weekend, I think we've seen what he's done and the impact he's made. 3 goals, 19 touches, was dynamite, dangerous up there. And then Braden Campbell being touted as, the next Matty Rao, one of the best left foots that they've seen come into the competition. And I think this is where we're going. And the rule change with the standing on the mark, I think it's just going to open up our ball use and having these elite kicks just to open sides up and, hit forward targets. And on the weekend, I think we had 23 marks inside forward 50 or something ludicrous like that. You've never heard a stat like that before. And, it's the first time we've kicked, 120 points in 6 years or something like that. So it's exciting time.
Dave, you've really come prepared tonight. Like, I normally have my statistics all written down for each club, and I think I'm pretty good at what we do. But, geez, you've brought the milkshakes to the yard today, I just must admit. Look, the one thing that I noticed is that you have a look at the 3 that you picked up. Campbell's at 181 and 73 kilos. Yeah. You look at Errol, he is at a different level altogether. He's like 175 and something in the middle, around about the similar type of kilos. And then you have Logan McDonald. He's at 196 and 86 kegs. He probably needs another maybe 5 to 10 to really blossom out, but that's a good weight to be coming in because a lot of those taller kids are probably sometimes 81, 82, but they're a stick. He's actually got a bit of size on him, and I think you're right. He hasn't just played waffle footy, having to play against bodies of similar size. He knows how to use his body against it, rather than play against kids, come against these bigger backs, and they just like, I'm not used to this being outmarked, out hustled. He is an absolute beast, and Buddy is definitely going to be a good mentor. Hopefully on the field, off the field, that could be a different story altogether.
Debatable off field, mate. Debatable off field.
Yeah, debatable off. But it's just how's it going to be? Buddy's going to be playing decoy.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think Logan McDonald just looks like natural footballer, mate. It's, it's key forwards, it's one of the hardest positions. You've got to know those leading patterns. You've got to know where to go and like how to protect your body going up for that mark. It's you can't teach that type of stuff. And I think he's already got that, which is it's exciting, mate. It's as excited as I've been about a player in a long time.
And it's also not just the leading, but you get ridiculed to the cows come home, because if you're a backman and you don't have a kick, but you stop your man, you've done your job. If you're a forward and you're not kicking goals regularly, because that's where they call that, that's why, Gary Lyon's nickname was Dollars, because they're the ones that generate the cash. They're the ones that get paid the big bucks. You look at all the highest paid players up until the midfielders really have taken over. They were the forwards. Dunstall, Lockett, Ablett, Richo, you name it. We could just keep going. Franklin. They're the ones that have taken all the cash. They cop it because they've got to deliver week in, week out. So, no, it's only 1 week. It's only a small sample size. But now, there's a couple of people I just want to quickly touch on before we move forward. One name that I want to talk about is Jake Lloyd. He was your BNF, obviously, last year, winning the Bob Skilton medal. You then have just Mr. Reliable Luke Parker, who I must say last year he did get me across in a multi, which was a little bit okay for me. So, have a lot of time.
Absolutely, mate. I'll just have on Parks, mate. If he was playing in Melbourne, he would be an A+ elite midfielder, but he's just not talked about in the same vein as, the guys down here. But what he's done for our club and leadership-wise and everything like that, mate. He's been huge.
He has
absolutely
been huge. But I reckon the guy who had the best season for you all, funny enough, was actually Tom Papley. Like, the way he carried himself through that entire year, because you remember he wanted to come down to Melbourne and leave the Swans. Didn't get the trade. The trade didn't get through, and then he could have just, played with the tail between his legs, but he went no. And at one stage, he was leading the Coleman for a good portion of the season as well too, and then probably slipped off a little bit. But just for what he was able to produce in a team that was sitting so lowly on the ladder, was a phenomenal effort, and it rewarded him by finishing third in that BNF. So, just your opinion on both Lloyd and Papley, and how much their input has been. Not just last year, but moving forward, can you see?
Yeah, look, to touch on Paps, it was huge to keep him. Absolutely huge, because as you know, we're talking about forwards, like key forwards. Good small forwards are as hard to find, who are relatively consistent. Paps just started the season absolutely on fire last year. He's leading the Coleman after 5 rounds. He was absolutely just tearing the game apart, and very stiff to miss out on an All-Australian selection for mine. I think they picked Liam Ryan in the side, and it was out. I would have taken Butler or Papley any day of the week, just for that position.
Yep.
But yeah, look, and I think it's sort of the load of carrying the forward line just took a toll on him sort of towards the end of the year. Not having too much support down there, it just took a toll, and he sort of petered out towards the end of the year. But, what did they play? 18 rounds last year.
They played 17 rounds, and he was averaging a goal and a half a game.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think he had a couple of donut games in there towards the end of the year. There's no doubt. But yeah, mate, his first half of the season was absolutely electric, and we're very happy to sort of keep him. And he seems to get along with the boys really well, and I think he's a bit more settled in his home life now. There was actually an interesting podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it, Dylan Friends with Dylan Buckley. He former player for the Blues and GWS. Interviewed Tom Papley, and he sort of touched a bit on his home life, just some of the troubles that he's had, and his dad actually has bipolar disorder, and sort of that took a bit of a toll on him, I think, and wanted to go back to Melbourne to be closer to his dad, sort of mend his relationship with his old man. But looks like they've sorted things out, and his missus seems to be getting up to Sydney a bit more as well. She works down in Melbourne. So hopefully all things point to perhaps staying at the club. But yeah, very important player for the Swannies, no doubt. And Jake Lloyd was the other one. Obviously huge for the Swannies. I think, look, I'm not going to lie, he gets all that cheap ball off half back, and it's,
someone has to get it. That's the thing. Someone has to get it.
And if you're an elite user by foot, and 9 times out of 10 he's making the right decisions, he's one of the most reliable players we have. So more than happy to go to Lloydie every time, and his distribution off half back can't be underestimated. And he's one of the elite players in the comp, I think.
I think he's going very well. And you were exactly right with Papley as well too. So he had a fantastic season last year, but he fizzed out. Like in his last 9 games for the year, he only kicked 7 goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So if the toll on him, like it was, if you stop Papley, you virtually stop Sydney, and that's pretty much what happened after that point in time too.
Yeah, and then look, we've just been struggling for forward structure, I feel, and look, we're sort of, Sam Reid gets a little bit of a bake on our podcast, but he's been around a long time, and he was on some serious money there. Signed a big 5-year deal for the Swans, and I just don't think he's delivered. As a key forward should. On the weekend he kicked a couple goals, and I think he only had about 6 touches. But if he does it, and it's good for him to be nailing those set shots and kicking those goals, that's important. But if he doesn't kick those goals, 6 touches as a key forward, not showing anything, it's not good enough. But it gets a C plus score for the game on the weekend. But I think he could be one of the ones in danger with Buddy coming back. Probably Hayden McLean's probably the other one who may go out of the side to get Buddy back in. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with selection on the weekend. But,
well, it will be, because I'll be getting into that very, very shortly about who do you think could be the breakout and the breakdown for 2021. Look, I could sit here all night and just go through some of these names, like Dane Rampy. My goodness gracious! Like, talk about Buddy holding up a forward line. He's held up the back line for the last number of years. You've got JPK, number 12, probably one of the finest midfielders that Sydney's ever had, and just ever consistent. I think a bit of father time. He's hitting game 259 259 at the moment, so he's 41 away from 300. So you're probably looking at 2+ seasons. Will he get another 2+ seasons? I don't know when he's contracted up to. You could almost look at the twins, which very, very similar. Isaac Heaney and Callum Mills, like, they're just two young bulls. What Heaney did on the weekend was, like, he's just getting better and better. Like, we know he's a good player, but he just, where do you want to play him? If you want to play him down back, he'll stop someone and intercept. If you want to play him through the midfield, he'll rack them up and give you quality service. Or if you throw him down forward, you guarantee him kicking not just a couple, but sometimes 4s and 5s. He is a forward that you look and go, Jesus, I know he's good, but I didn't know he was that good. Is he another one that just doesn't get enough kudos in the Melbourne environment?
Oh, there's no doubt about that, mate. No doubt. Look, Heaney broke his foot last year against Brisbane, round 2 or 3, was out for the rest of the year. But we consistently talk on True Bloods about Heaney being a top 5 player in the competition. Like, there's no doubt that Heaney can take it up with the best of them. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but not too many players can go forward, kick 3 or 4 goals, win their own ball, playing as a genuine midfielder, and then be the man who's sent back when it turns to shit up back. He can do everything, and he's insane. He's a great mark overhead, and, he's a good kick of the footy too. So he's definitely one that he's got to get the continuity in his game going forward to stay on the park, and also, just keep hitting that scoreboard as well, I feel.
Now, I have to ask you this as well too, because we have got no idea how you do this down in Melbourne, right? Your Sydney Academy, clubs have academies left, right and centre. What is it in your water? Like, do you give them the mutant X gene? Do you feed them something that, it's approved by WADA and ASADA, but it's just you can't get in any other state? Is it the water? Is it the access to fireworks that they can get in Canberra? What is it that you just happen to just produce young kids to come out of the academy year after year, where there's just some that have an academy just to access a couple of the picks a little bit earlier? Like, what is it that your club, is it the culture? Is it the place itself? Is it, I don't know. Give us some insight, because other clubs sitting going, how do they do it?
Yeah, look, it's hard. Look, I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm not too sure how the academies work, how they get their players in and that type of thing. And I don't think anyone does, but we have had an academy for, the last 10 years. And I think, that it's sort of you're 3 steps ahead of every club, because, they don't know how to, develop these players from a young age. Like, we're talking 10, 11 years old. Like Errol Goulden and Braden Campbell, they've been there since they were 12. They've been playing in the academy up there, and I think they've just got the recipe right to develop these guys, and also that Bloods culture that is instilled in the club up there as well. So I think that just sort of, it produces these young kids who don't necessarily get thrown into the game like those two, but, they get bred through what was the NEAFL, as were the AFL.
Oh, the NEAFL.
The NEAFL. Yeah, we like to drop a NEAFL as well. But, yeah, look, I think we just sort of, ease our players in, and we don't throw them in the deep end too early, and we only play them when they're ready. I think we've seen that with the likes of Callum Mills. How was his game on the weekend? Just quietly insane. We call him the Rolls Royce on our podcast. He's just that player. And look at one of the guys, Benny, has been calling for Mills to go into the midfield for a couple of years now, and I've sort of been sceptical because he's a very good user off halfback as well, and sort of was a bit of a general down there. But I think what we saw on the weekend, there's no doubt where he should be, and that's in the middle because he's tough. He can find the ball, and he's one of those goal-kicking midfielders which are very, very hard to find. But he was another one to come through the academy, and I think we just get it right at the selection table and also at the drafting table. Oh. We get it right more than we get it wrong. The only sort of bad draft pick I can think of in the past 10 years is Tippett. He's one that cost us a little bit, big dollars, and had to wear that on the salary cap for a long time. But rather than that, everyone sort of seems to get a go, and if they've come from another club, they're normally a better player leaving the Swans than they were walking into it.
Well, just some of the names. You mentioned a couple just there. Sam Naismith, Isaac Heaney, Callum Mills, Nick Blakey, Sam Wicks, James Bell. There's just 6 names that I've just rolled off that have come out of the academy. And there's other ones we don't even know about because you keep them under the radar, let's be honest. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, your development is bar none probably the best in the league. I don't think many clubs, when you come to the Swans, you know that you're going to be developed right and you're going to get a game when you're ready. They're not going to throw you in like other clubs have to because of the list that you've got as well too. All right. I have to ask you about the man, and we know who we're talking about. We're talking about the big number 23, Big Lance. Tell me, how much of an impact has this guy had for the Swans? Not just going up there as a player, but just from the reputation, just everything, because that move from Hawthorn to Sydney was massive at the time. 9-year deal, mega bucks. Has it delivered for you guys, do you think? Outside of the premiership, has it delivered?
Well, he hasn't played in the flag.
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Outside of a flag, because that's the only thing missing.
Yep, 110% he has been worth every penny for the Sydney Swans. There's no doubt about it. And everyone's always going to say the flag. But look, one thing goes different in that 2016 grand final, I feel, very early on. And, I'm not a spiritual guy, but it was just like everything was against us that day. You have a look at the free kick count. You have a look at, Hanbury getting his knee done early in the game, yep. Franklin rolling an ankle. The few things changed in that game, and we're not talking about was Lance Franklin worth it. But no, mate, he's won 15, 20 games off his own boot just for us. He's built the game up in Sydney, and we always talk about how important it is to have the game flourishing up in Sydney, not just because we're supporters, but, for the whole AFL too. A strong Sydney is good for the competition.
Oh, I've said that before. Definitely said that before. That is, yeah. But once again, he just tries his guts out. He did do his ankle early, and he knew he was in strife. But he tried the guts out. Even I think he's one of those players that, you've had a really good history, and I'm going to ask you a question later on 3 players who's been the biggest influence or biggest impact at the club in terms of drawing people through the gate. He was doing it down in Melbourne. He was doing it up in Sydney. We have something, the whole 13. There's no, if you guys say that, you know who it's related to.
Yeah, exactly right.
And he's capable of just turning a game like that. And when he finishes up, the game's going to be in a worse position not having someone like a Buddy, because it's always, Buddy, what's he doing? When's he back? Not many other people have that charismatic pull. Probably Dusty would be the only other one, really, I think, from a charismatic perspective. Probably Matt Rowell, because everybody just wants to see Matt Rowell play. But outside of that, there's no one that you go, oh, when are they playing? We want to see him. Other clubs want to see this guy play because he is a dead set Hall of Famer. That's regardless, absolute star. And we all hope that he gets to 1,000. And if it doesn't happen this year, hopefully he gets a good way to it, because next year's going to be his last. But, okay, let's have a look at 2021. We've covered so much. It's time to get the crystal ball out and project where we're going to go. So 2021, what are you most optimistic about? What gets you excited deep down in your loins about this year for the Swans?
Look, always optimistic going into a season. I sort of, predicted us, 7 would be happy with 7th to 12th.
Yep.
And, that's going in with a lot of unknowns going into a season, but, it's hard to keep the lid on after a performance like the weekend. But I think that the world is our oyster and we could do anything this year. We could be that surprising team that, I won't say top 4, but, it's a top 6 side.
Jeez, you've gone early, Dave. Crocky, it's only round 1. Like
That's all, mate. I'm keeping it tame. Top 6 is tame.
Just I know you got the tank top on tonight and you've got the guns out. Everyone can see. I can see it, right? So I know you're getting a little bit excited, get the double cobras out and everything, but it's round 1. Look, keep the lid on it. Who have you got this week? You've got Adelaide. Oh, that's a loss after what they did on the weekend.
I don't know. Geelong was coming back hard, mate, from what I saw.
No, they took the foot off. Nixie just decided to take the foot off the gas a little bit and just decided to even up the game because, let's be honest, Dad's Army had no chance of beating Adelaide after the start that they got. But yeah,
that's it. Well, yeah, I think, mate. Look, it's how good our young players can be and for how long. Young sides are inconsistent, and we know that. So, hopefully these 3 that have sort of come in. They can sort of be managed through the season a little bit. Buddy's going to be managed, I think Horse said today, John Longmire. So, he's not going to play every game this year, even if his body is fit. So we know that going in. But, as I touched on, it's going to be, the Blakeys, the O'Flows, Haywood, if he gets it into the side. That these guys are the ones that are going to get us through that season. They need to take their B game up to that A game to be able for us to be competitive, if we made it through to September.
Yeah, and more importantly, they're the ones that win your flags. It's your bottom 6 that win your grand finals. If you have a look, like if I said Mitch Morton, Mitch Morton, who
Snaps
Morton, like he was a bottom 6 player at Sydney. Let's be honest.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
He got you across the line in that 2012 grand final. Like, snaps Morton. Like, that he doesn't care. He's got a premiership medal around his neck. Got so much ridicule, he doesn't care. But you've actually got a really good run. Your first 6 games, like we said, we had the one on the weekend against Brisbane, which
no one did.
No one did.
we tipped them by 2 goals, but only because you have to.
You've got a beautiful run into the next week. You've got Adelaide. Then that flows into Richmond at the G, so that's going to be a nice test for yourselves. Then got Essendon. You then have Sydney versus GWS. Okay, so the battle of the bridge, and then you've got Gold Coast after that. So it's a nice little run to set your season up against some teams that are going to be in that similar sort of 50-50 game. Like you mentioned, that 7 to 12 range.
And they're the biggest games, Peps. When you've got a side on that equal pegging as you, as they say, it's the old 8-point game. But, GWS weren't too impressive against a depleted St Kilda on the weekend. I don't think Gold Coast are going to improve too much myself. Tigers are still the ones to beat. But generally, we're pretty competitive against the Tigers. Our brand of footy this year, I think, will I'm pretty excited to get to the G in a couple of weeks, that's for sure. But I think we can just take it up to those sides, and that it'll be interesting to test ourselves to see where we actually are, whether it was sort of, a bit of a once-off performance against Brisbane, or we are, a competitive beast of a side this year.
Yeah, I think you're a competitive beast, I must admit. You're, champion data. I've said it on everyone. We take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I've given you the 11th hardest draw, so that's a really good spot to be in. You only play St Kilda, Geelong, Fremantle, Gold Coast and Essendon twice. And out of that, there is no reason why you couldn't win all 10 of those, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
if you win all 10 of those, you only need another 4 wins for the rest of the season to slot you in that upper 5 to 6, and anything else after that's going to get you top 4.
Yeah, and I think Geelong could just be sliders this year as well. Playing them twice doesn't really worry me. But you always pick up a game when you don't think you win, and you always lose a couple that you think you should. So time will tell, but all the signs are pointing up. Peps.
I'm a Melbourne supporter, mate. We lose the unlosable and win the unwinnable. So it happens all the time. I feel for you. Hey, what about 2 times got traded last year down to Port Adelaide, Aaliyah. How much of a loss do you think he would be? If there was any concern for you for 2021, one of them might have been, I loved what he does, and I think he's going to slot in nicely at Port. Is that going to be has he left a hole in the back line in your eyes, or?
Definitely not, mate. Definitely not. If you asked me this 2 years ago, I would have been pretty cut, losing Aliir for, a second round pick.
Because I was surprised he left, to be honest. I wasn't too, like, when it comes up, those trades that you go, why is he leaving? Where's this one come from?
They even talked about on Footy Classifieds last night. They're like, how did this guy just go to Port? No one else chased him. He still had a year to run on his contract. So, they pegged him out of nowhere, but we have got quite a tight salary cap squeeze up in Sydney. There's no doubt about that. But to touch on Aliir, 2 years ago he was on this steady incline, and I think, the 2019 season just sort of started to flatline for mine. He reads the ball well. He's a great intercepting player, but decision-making is questionable for mine. Yeah. And that's huge off half-back, and that's where, they're turnover goals. And it happened a bit too much for mine. So to lose him for a second-round pick, I'm not devastated, and I think we've seen Tommy McCartan step into that role pretty well for mine. So I'm not too worried about that.
You're brutal. You're a brutal. I like it. It's just like, jeez.
Yeah.
Imagine what
look, as we like to say, it is what it is, but I think they're the cold, hard facts too. He wasn't consistently improving like he was the previous 2 years.
I like it. Okay, so where are the concerns? Where do you sit back and look at everything and go,
it's how
that could
long.
Be troubling.
It's just that being such a young side and being consistent, where there probably hasn't been a young side come through since those baby bombers of 2000, How long can these young players play? I think you have a look at our spine, you've got Rampy with some young guys around him. He sort of, teaches them. You've got JPK in the middle, and then you've got Buddy up forward. There's the spine of the Swans has been in good condition for a long time. And I think that's where we've sort of, we've got the demographic right, which I don't think a lot of clubs do. We've got those young players, coming in, making an impact, being exciting. We've got those guys who are, 22 now, who have those 30 to 50 games in. And then we've got those old wise heads as well, mate. So, it was probably young talent was our problem a few years ago, but I think that's sorted itself out now, and I think that we'll start to see some, fruits of the hard times we've done in the last 3 years, finishing in the bottom four.
Yeah. Now, like I said, the only concern that I would have, and I thought it'd be earlier, but as you said, it would be having a younger list going back to full-length quarters and having those extra 5 games so you need to really bank those early wins, because we've seen it's happened to those younger teams. It's happened to GWS. It's happened to Gold Coast. It's happened to a number where the last probably half a dozen games they tend to peter out because the season just gets way too long. That would be the only concern. So if you can do what you did, but the reverse, instead of losing your first 6 games, win a majority of them, it will compensate if you do have that bit of a lull and you have to rotate players through to get a bit of life into them as well too.
Yeah, I think a lull's bound to happen, right? Losing a couple of games, especially if we were in contention sort of coming into September, losing those couple of games just, it resets the focus. I feel you don't want to be cruising through a season, winning majority of your games and not being really tested. I would like to, see the young guys hold on for as long as they can. But I think we may manage them too. They'll, a squad wins, premierships. Yep. So, if we use those 30, 35 players and, get some experience into the young guys and also manage them through the season, I think that's going to be important to our success this year.
Okay, so who's going to be the breakout star for the Swans? Who's the one that we don't know? Who's the diamond in the rough? Who's the who's under the carpet that we don't know nothing about and you think he is going to do something special this year that I picked when we listened back at this at the end of the year?
I got 2 for you. It's hard to pick one. I'll go with Chad Warner, the young fella in there. He's only in his probably second year, only played a game or 2. I think he played 1 last year and he's played the first one this year.
Chad Warner, wasn't that one of the names of the actors in Boogie Nights?
Oh, mate, I don't know Boogie Nights.
It's a good Boogie Nights name, though. Chad Warner.
Chad Warner.
That has got explicitness written all over it. So Chad Warner, what's about him?
Yeah, look, it's just his in and under attitude. It's just his attitude, how he goes about the ball, hunting it. Not many players have that absolute will to get the ball in and out and quite clean in close. I think he's one to watch who won't get talked about because the academy, the big academy guys in Errol, Campbell, and our top pick McDonald might take a bit of that heat off him. I think he's going to be very good, and also one who probably gets no notice in Melbourne whatsoever is Jordan Dawson off half back. I mentioned it before, one of the best left foots I've seen, and he gets that cheeky hands around the back around the 50 metres, and it's sailing through. So he's a player who could go to that Jake Lloyd level to be one of our main distributors off half back on the wing there. He's one to look out for to become that A grader.
Nice. Now, unfortunately, with every breakout, there's going to be a breakdown. So whose last season can you see playing for the Salt Swans in 2021? Who's like, thank you for your service and all the best in your future endeavours?
I've touched on him before already. Sammy Reid. I think his time could be up, especially with these young guys coming through. Has been a servant for the club, I would say. Probably hasn't reached his potential. Had a few breakout games, few bags of 5, 6, and 7, but just not consistent enough. Consistently runs under the ball too much, which is so frustrating to watch. As being a previous forward myself, it's just like that's what you pride your game on is getting to as many contests as you can, and running under the ball, you're out of it straight away. I think that just happens a bit too much, and I think with Logan McDonald coming through, his spot could be in jeopardy.
Well, I now understand, like, on Pep's, your Zoom name as it's come through is Dave Bags Baxter. Now I understand what Bags represents is what you used to do on weekends playing footy as a forward. Alrighty, so where are the Swans going to finish in 2021? Where can you see a ladder position? Once again, let's get on the reality bus and there are some teams that can go first, but from a Swans perspective, where do you think that you're going to pop it into this year?
I think, and honestly, it has sort of changed a position or two after the weekend. I didn't think we had that sort of football in us. I think anywhere from 6 to 10 would be fantastic, and then to really go bang next year. But anywhere from 6 to 10, I would predict, because these young players can be inconsistent, and we are very young. We're the second youngest team out there on the weekend. So, but there's a lot of talent there too. So
a lot of talent. So, look, it wouldn't surprise me if you finished in the top 8 after, once again, one round.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if you finished as low as, definitely not as low as last year.
Yeah.
10th, I reckon. 10th to 12, because it's almost like, if for anybody who hasn't seen it, I think it's called Drive to Survive, the Formula One documentary on Netflix. And it's really interesting because, the Mercedes group is so far in front. That's your Port Adelaides, that's your Richmonds, etc. You don't worry about that. All the stuff that happens is in the mid-tier racing.
Exactly.
It's exactly the same with the AFL. It's the mid-tier stuff between, you're right, 6 to 12. Like, there's only 2 spots available. Yeah. And you've got to squeeze like 7, 8 teams in there. Like, it's those 50-50 games which are the exciting ones.
100%, mate. 100%. And look, who knows what the season holds, but it's bloody exciting to see what we did on the weekend. Hopefully we can hold on and, play some really good footy, and, to make that 8 would be sensational, and it's a pretty quick turnaround. You can't keep the Swans down for too long.
We like the Swans, let's be honest. If you don't like, there's other clubs there's clubs you can hate, like the Spies. Swans isn't one of them as well. All right. So, if it's not going to be the Swans, let's put the Agates on the chopping board. We've had a lot of feedback from all the podcasts that we've rolled out, all the season previews, getting their eyes on the prize. So if it's not going to be the Swans, of course, who do you see taking out the 2021 premiership?
Look, after the pre-season and last year, I see Port Adelaide as a pretty strong side. Going into this year, there's no doubt. you know, I talked about it with the Swans, but the spine's pretty important. You know, they've got Aaliyah in there, they've got Jonas, they've got Boak, Robbie Gray, not Westhoff. Who's the Charlie
Dixon?
Charlie Dixon up forward. You know, it's all about.
He's scary. He's just scary. Those tats, mo, hair, everything.
Yeah, he was the best big forward in the game last year. And I think when you get your spine sorted out, everything sort of, you know, works itself out after that. So I think they're going to be a bloody hard team to beat this year.
Yeah, it's been a very popular opinion amongst all the podcasters who I've rolled this out with as well too. So they just look primed. I think they've learned from last year and they've actually added to their squad. Having Aaliyah down there, just, you know, replaces Westhoff down there, younger version, and then you bring Fantasia or Dario in.
He hasn't been impressive.
Oh, it's just sensational. Perfect for what they needed on that fast Adelaide deck. Like, goodness gracious, sitting at Dixon's feet. He just looks happy. Looks like he didn't have it. Listen to him.
I think one thing that is important is to, you know, face some adversity. And, you know, they've lost, you know, a couple of prelims now, I think maybe. So I think they're, you know, those players like Boak and, you know, Robbie Gray, those guys who sort of, you know, starting to get a little bit older now. This is their chance to win a flag. So I think, you know, they may be ready to go bang this year.
Yeah, and those three young kids, we keep going on about them, like that they brought in a couple of drafts ago, have just been sensational for them. And you're right, they've got the experience, they've got a bit of youth. They've just their profile across the board is right, and I think Ken Hinckley's had to go through the bad times to reap in the good times as well. Who's your Brownlow pick if you had to pick one at this particular moment in time?
Brownlow pick. Now, it's hard to
don't pick a key forward and don't pick a key backman because they don't get votes.
They don't poll, mate. They definitely
don't poll. Don't waste your time.
Look, someone like the Bond, Bond and Pally.
Another
go
popular
well.
one, yep. What you guys got. Guys know your stuff. Yep.
But, you know, he's going to have a lot of players taking votes off him in that midfield, which could be, you know, one of the best we've seen in a long time, that midfield for the Doggies.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? Yep.
It is.
Gorgeous. The way they play. Good looking, but they are gorgeous the way they play.
That's it. And I'd love to see someone like a Paddy Cripps win one. That'd be good. For a young player who has carried a club like Carlton on his shoulders for so long, you know, bit of an off-season, but I don't think off-season last year.
Yep.
I just don't think his body was right. But if he's got all that stuff right, he's one of the most, you know, damaging big
He's
body.
A big unit. He's definitely a big boy.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, another one that's come up a couple of times as well too. So you got your finger on the pulse there, Dave. I really appreciate it. All right. Here's some quick hands for you. You don't know these questions because I deliberately pull these ones so you have an idea. So pretty stock standard, just go with what your heart is. Okay. So who you can only pick one of these, Kelly or Goods?
Gee, some vintage Paul Kelly.
Yeah, vintage at their best, Paul Kelly or Goods?
Yeah, look, it's got to be Goods, mate. Yeah, I've got the cardboard cut up out here. I don't know whether you...
I can see that. I can see that. And when I wrote the question and I turned the video on, I went, oh, shit, that question's irrelevant because he doesn't have a Paul Kelly statue unless it's under the desk because it's that short.
You know, Paul Kelly won the one Brownlow, but, you know, Goodsy's won two. And I think Goodsy's one of the only players, I think Pavlich may have done it, and Goods to have made the All-Australian side is both a backman, a midfielder, and a forward. So I think that speaks volumes. Yep. So, yeah, Goods for me.
All right. Who's been the biggest draw card out of these three from the Swans? And if you want to put them in an order, go ahead and do so. Kappa, Lockett, Franklin.
Geez, look, I'm what am I, 28 now? So, you know, probably didn't see Kappa in his prime. Lockett was my hero growing up. And Buddy, geez, through the gates, from what I hear, actually Diesel Williams was on SEN this morning.
I heard that, yeah. I heard it was a ripping interview. If you can ever get a chance to listen to it, get on the SEN website and listen to it. It was tears down your face stuff. It was that funny.
Yeah, it was pisser. But I think Kappa may have drawn that many people through the gates up there in Sydney in that time, when it was, the club was nothing. So I think probably for the impact of the club, I would have to put Kappa on top.
Yep.
Followed by, these two are hard to split. Now, I can't split them.
You're not going to split them?
Lockett was absolutely huge in a time, where the club was struggling as well. So Lockett was huge, getting people, kicking hundreds of goals at a time every season. Absolutely massive, and, Buddy, the modern-day player. So I'm going to have those two on an equal
I reckon it's a good idea, because when Tony listens to this, he's not going to be knocking on your door. Why'd you put me at 3? But I simply went, I did go Kappa first. Simply this.
Yeah.
Like, don't you hear people taking speckies, playing kick to kick and yelling out, lock it, or locking out, Buddy, it's Kappa. And that's iconic. All right.
Yeah.
From a coaching perspective, Paul Roos or John Longmire?
I think, gee whiz, that is tough. Yeah. Roos did so much for the club. He was a bit of an innovator, changed the way the game was played. In general, found a way to win a flag as the Ugly Ducklings in 05 and won a flag. And then you got Horse, who probably, maybe had a bit more cattle in, 2012 and won a flag. Going on that, I'm going to have to go Roos, because I think John Longmire struggles for a bit of plan B, plan C action sometimes, and we're pretty critical sometimes of it on True Bloods. So for that reason, I'm going to go Roos just ahead of Horse. But, if Horse won another flag, he would trump Roos.
He had big shoes to fill. Like, he had the perfect he was the perfect understudy. He's into his 11th season now. Like, he has been sensational. Just when you think that and I think the way that the younger crop has come in, that's exciting for him and exciting for your club as well too. All right. From the best player that you've seen live for the Swans.
Best player live. Barry Hall in his prime was pretty good.
What about Barry? Yes.
Barry Hall, look, just sort of, getting a player from, coming from Melbourne to the Swans as a marquee player. He tore apart some games, won some games off his own boot, but he's the best player. You have a
really good record of getting, like, gun forwards from other clubs. It's the ones that just want to escape the public eye, go up to Sydney, and they just flourish. Yeah. All right. If you could pick one player from any other team right now and slot them into the Swans team, who would it be?
Well, it's got to be Dusty, doesn't it?
Dusty?
He's the best. Yeah, he's the best player in the comp by far, best finals player we've ever seen. And that's something I hold really high. He's playing well in big games, and he's done it 3 times every time he's played a grand final. And it's something I despise when someone can't perform in a big game. Former Swans player Gary Rowan gets a lot of kudos for being a good player, but doesn't rock up when he's when it's game time.
He's putrid when it comes to finals. First player to drop. And look, we would know what it takes to play finals. Being gun footballers that we were, we dominated at the pointy end of the season. Year after.
Mate,
we know that. We know that.
I'll have to show you my under-14s grand final, mate. It's pretty impressive.
I'll show you my under-16s prelim. 2 of the greatest goals you'll ever see. And last but not least, there's 2 flags. You've got your 205 and you've got your 212, sorry.
Yeah.
Which one was the better one? Which is the one that you go, that's the one? I've got a feeling I know what the answer is, because it might be hanging up on your wall.
Yeah, but contrary to that, I think 05, just coming from a personal point of view, 05 I was probably a bit young to appreciate it. What was I back in 05? I was 13 years old. And you don't really know what a flag is.
It's tough seeing, two premierships by the age of 28. It's tough, isn't it? Try trying none in 45 years.
I know, mate. I know. And I know how lucky I am.
You don't know, all right? No, you don't know. And the St Kilda supporters are with me too.
I know how lucky it is to be a Swan supporter, but 2012, being a bit older, being able to went to both grand finals, but
beautiful.
just being able to appreciate it a bit more and knowing that you don't come across them every day. 2012.
And have a beer at the game too. Yes.
Great, mate. It was fantastic.
Great day. Hey, listen, you know it's been great. You've been great, Dave. Now, I can see now there's people listening to this going, I'll tell you what, this Peps guy, he's pretty good. We know that. We've been listening to him for the last number of seasons. But I'll tell you what, Dave and True Bloods, I want to get on this one. How can they find you? When are you on? When are you publishing? Give us all the kudos. This is your time to shine. It's time for you to peacock and tell us all about True Bloods and where can they find out more about you?
Absolutely, Peps. So we're on all the socials. So True Bloods podcast is where we're at. If you go onto our Instagram, there's a Linktree bio on there, and that will take you to our Spotify, where we post the podcast. Normally goes up either Thursday or Friday, depending when we record it. We preview the game and review the previous game as well, and everything else, Sydney Swans. We're on Facebook as well, True Bloods podcast. Put up a post. We love posting a social question. Love for you guys to engage with us, and appreciate having us on, Peps. It's been good, mate. And
what I'll do is I'll put all those links in the podcast notes as well too. So, look, every day or every guest I ask this, the last question, and it's just simply this, Dave, and you'll probably know the answer when you see it. It's Dave from True Bloods. Tell me, mate, how do you want your footy?
We can't read it, mate.
It says I want it lace out. I forgot to tell you at the start of the episode.
You can re-record that if you want.
Oh, don't worry about it. I know that you want it lace out, but look, you're
mate, I love it lace out, mate. Right here.
There we go. We got it in. Look, you're an absolute star, mate. I really appreciate it. Like I just said, for everybody, I know a lot of Swan supporters out here. They've been asking, when are you doing ours? Well, you've got yours, and like Dave said, over the time that we've had together, I think you are in an absolute sweet spot with your older and your younger, and I wish you and the Swans nothing but success for 2021 and also for True Bloods because, by God, you guys, you're the nice guys of the AFL and we actually like you too. So on behalf of everybody, there is your Sydney Swans 2021 season preview. I'm Peps. We've got our new episode coming out shortly, so stay tuned for that. But more importantly, Dave, all the best for the season, and to everybody, have a great night. Thanks for listening to our latest episode. If you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. I'm your host, Chris Pepper, and with Jamie Wallace, we give you your footy how you want it. Peace out.